Hello there. I am back with another VR to the Garden Arcana, put out by Thea from Garden Goddess Tarot and Candy from Candy Soul and Soil. I'm very excited because this time we are moving on to the Emperor, the Hierophant, and the Lovers, and seeing what I can find in my garden that just kind of reminds me of them. So, I think without any further introduction, we should just get right into it. Because I've positioned myself, at least with the first thing that makes me think of the Emperor. So let's flip the camera around and get started. So I wanted to start over here because right now we are looking at the windows of Paul's office, which overlooks this main garden I have kind of going on right now. And this really made me think of the Emperor because, should I show some cards first? Am I going in the right order here? Okay, here is the card that made me think of this, is this Emperor card from the Golden Tarot. I always think it's interesting to see an Emperor very much kind of enclosed in man-made buildings, and this one it's very obviously so, where I feel like usually we see the Empress around with a lot of nature and kind of in a lot of greenery. I always think it's interesting to see that juxtaposition. So this Emperor, especially with this window here, really made me think of how Paul's office overlooks this garden here, because inside his office, you know, his interests involve a lot of technology and gaming, 3D printing things, engineering, things of that sort. So the two worlds that kind of exist here are very different. His being one of a lot more structure, and out here it's kind of left to go at least a little bit wild and natural, how I've set it up. So that really makes me think of that Emperor energy. Shall we move on to the next? I suppose so. So I decided to go back to my Oracle of the Roses and do what I did last time in terms of picking out archetypes that I feel fit the meaning as I associate with the major arcana. So for the Emperor, I chose the Ruler. Are we in focus there? Maybe. It's very sunny today. As well as the Architect, which is kind of the one that caught my eye more. Oh my goodness. People just love to be doing things outside, huh? Can't blame them. It's very nice out today. Because the Ruler, you know, that one seems obvious to me. So what really kind of caught my attention was the Architect. Do we wait? Oh my goodness. Okay. Back to the idea of the Architect. I really like seeing the Emperor energy this way because, to me, when we think of the Emperor and the Empress as a pair, the Empress is creation, where the Emperor is kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? Rule maker doesn't feel quite right, but the shaper, I suppose, where the Empress creates, and I feel like the Emperor energy almost refines. And so what also made me think of that was looking here. I've got this little bucket here that was holding plants at a nursery at one point that I keep all of my tools I use most often to kind of prune, add, and detract from the garden however it is I need to, which really made me think of the Emperor card from the Garden and Goblins Tarot. I really love how this card is depicted because we have our Emperor figure here in this very structured, purposeful garden, and you see all of their tools. There's like a little shed in the background there. It's very, very structured. So to me, the role of the Emperor is that of structuring the creation of the Empress in a way, which is really interesting and kind of just how I like seeing it. So seeing my garden tools here really made me think of that because these are what allow me to structure the natural growth of these things around me, or add things that I want to, take away things that I don't want here, and really help me to kind of bring that kind of sense of rule over some of what's going on here. So that is where I'm seeing the Emperor. For the Hierophant, I have pulled out the Sage, as well as the Priest. So where the High Priestess to me feels a bit more shrouded in mystery and self-discovery, the Hierophant is kind of, to me, feels like it pulls on that Emperor energy, having followed that directly in the journey of our Fool, and has this spiritual wisdom in a more structured way. So maybe it's something that has been written down and follows a set of rules and kind of is a bit more concrete. And one of the cards that I really love to represent this is that of the Vicar from the Victorian Fairy Tarot, which really made me think of this base to my fairy birdhouse here, but this is what I consider kind of my outdoor fairy altar as well. And so I see the Hierophant energy here because it is something that is kind of physically here that I can go to play out this spiritual practice I have with the fae and fairies in my surrounding area, and it's somewhere I can kind of leave offerings and whatever the heck else. And it really just, it reminded me of this card. The other card I have here is from the Meraki Tarot, and I really loved the image here of this owl reading from a book within these willow tree branches. I don't have a willow tree, otherwise I feel like I would have shown that because I feel like they're such a good symbol of wisdom. But I like the owl as well, really being that kind of animal embodiment of wisdom a lot of the time. But I love the idea that this animal is kind of reading from this book we assume to kind of spell out the rules of their spirituality or ways in which they see the world. To me, that really represented how much we can learn from and just find wisdom in the world around us just by observing and kind of seeing that there really is this natural set of rules, this law and order to nature itself. And the last Hierophant card I have here is from the Garden and Goblins Tarot, and I actually wanted to read the guidebook segment for this because I really loved how it talked about the Hierophant. So let's do that, why don't we? If there was one who could curate a library of molecular symbiotic relationships, it would be the Hierophant. Lover of all things small, fine, and interconnected, he has made it his life's work to memorize mycelial networks and the merging patterns of lichen. No blade of grass requires his seal of approval, but he's always there nonetheless. Wanderer, join me and become witness to the wonder of the infinite and unraveling. I love this whole deck, first of all, but the way that that describes the Hierophant, I think really kind of brings it away from that kind of typical priest, historically pope energy around that card and makes it feel a little bit more grounded and less tied into, what do you call that? Standardized religion, I suppose you could say. By having it be this thing of the Hierophant isn't this ruler, but they are someone who is willing to be there to have the answers, but isn't someone there to enforce it. And I just really love that idea of the Hierophant. I also wanted to show this patch of clover we have growing here. This is a space that was dug up earlier, well, last month I believe it was, because it had a bunch of invasive plants. So we were left with this basically patch of dirt. So we were trying to grow within it, and we chose clover. And the reason this feels like it represents the Hierophant to me was because how we came about planting all of these beautiful seedlings we have already was wowza, it is hot today. My camera keeps shutting off, so apologies for that, because it's too hot. Anyways, how we came about planting what we now have as these beautiful seedlings was from research and looking into books and internet sources of people who have more knowledge than we do about planting in the area we are. And kind of through that research and learning from people who are just wiser than us in this area, we discovered that clover was a really good way to go to start, at least, because it's really native to this area. And so in that way, we're also kind of pulling on those natural, I don't have to say natural, I guess, but the laws of nature for our area in terms of something is going to do better if it is supposed to be here. And that really feels like Hierophant energy to me as well. So, before we overheat again, let's move on to the levers. Okay, and last but not least, we are moving on to the levers. Now, the archetypes I chose out for this are the heart and the companion. So, the way that I really like to look at the levers really comes through by means of our commitments and the choices we make in terms of the things we kind of commit ourselves to. A card I really love for showcasing that comes from the, oh my goodness, what are you called? What deck is this? Terra Volatile, oh my goodness. The Crossroads, because I think this is one of the few lovers cards I have right now that really portrays the lovers in terms of the choice we have to take on certain paths and just the choices we make in general and the things we commit to. That's really how I like to see it. But I did also pull out a kind of more typical lovers card from the Golden Tarot, which I really love as well. Here we see that biblical reference to Adam and Eve, which I do think in its own interesting way really portrays commitments and choices as well, because I mean that whole story is themed on the choices each of these characters make, which I think is really interesting. So, leaning into that, I also really loved the idea of companion, because although I don't typically see the Lovers card in terms of romantic relationships or that more emotional side, I tend to see that as the Two of Cups. I do think there is an interesting companionship aspect to the lovers in terms of a lot of the times our commitments are to other people or involve other people, and I think there could be a really cool opportunity for viewing companionship in that way. So, something I wanted to look at in the garden today was my companion planting. Things I have planted together because they really benefit each other in their growing process. And something that I really utilized this year was marigolds. And don't they look so beautiful? I had two different colorings this year. I love these fiery orange and red colors. But marigolds are really, really good for keeping a lot of common garden pests out of the garden. So I lined my whole kitchen garden here with marigolds. I mean, and not only do they just look so beautiful, they really have been doing a great job at keeping at least the bug variety of pests out, away from my herbs. I'm trying to think of anything else I might have companion planted here. Oh, I know. Let's go over to the vegetable garden. So over here in my vegetable garden bed, on either side on there and over here, I have nasturtium growing. Now this will bloom also some really pretty red and orange flowers that kind of act as a little bit of a plant sacrifice in a way, in terms of it'll attract the insects that typically kind of go after these vegetables to its flowers, and they will want to eat those instead. So, really interesting thing going on there. But also over here, I've got a tomato plant and an eggplant growing, both in the nightshade family. And while these plants don't typically grow super well, something was digging in here. You can see that there. They don't grow well with a lot of different vegetables. They will absolutely boost each other so beautifully. So that should be really cool to watch. Something else I wanted to show for the lovers in terms of companionship is there's not much to see right now. I'm pretty zoomed in because I don't want to disturb, but this is a robin's nest, and the eggs actually hatched maybe yesterday, this morning, very recently. And so it's been really, ignore my winter wreath. Oh my gosh, just realized that that is still winter. Anyhow, it's been really cool watching the robin couple really work together to bring these eggs into the world and now these little baby birds into the world, and how their roles have really shifted around through each step of the process. Has been really fascinating to see this up close as well. We are at our front door, which is where they decided to have a nest for some reason, but hey, that's okay. We've loved watching them. We keep that window open because Stevie will just watch them all day too. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see that as the needs change, so do their roles, and they really just work together so seamlessly. It's really cool to watch. It's the sort of thing where it's like no one's doing more work than the other. It's very balanced. And so I thought that really spoke to an interesting aspect of the lovers as well. Right, and finally for the lovers, I had to show my roses because of this card from the La Flora Tarot. They assign the rose to the lovers. Now, there's no blooms currently. I've got this climbing rose right here that it's just about to open up. I'm so excited to see that color. I haven't gotten a bloom yet. But I also have this rose bush over here that, oh, looks like we do have a bloom. It's kind of trailing the floor, but still beautiful. There's so many buds on this one. But I think this one really speaks so well to that classic way we can look at the lovers when we're thinking of just that rote meaning of the word, being that sort of partnership, romantic relationship, if that's how you want to read into it, which I think totally applies sometimes. The rose being that really classic symbol of love and flowers that you would give to loved ones. I'm so excited to see this one. It's gonna be so beautiful. Okay, and that is all I have for you all today. I waited till later in the afternoon to finish the rest so that it wasn't so bright and sunny and hot outside, but I hope you enjoyed these the next 3 majors, and I'm already so excited to do the next one. Every time I'm watching Thea and Candy's videos, my wheels are already turning about what I might find in my garden to pair up. So, that being said, I will see you all again very soon. I hope you've had a wonderful weekend and beginning to your week.